We're going to curse to catch up on what we missed. I missed an Amud. Daf Samach Vav Amud Beis. Just one Amud. We're between one Mishnah and the next Mishnah. The Mishnah on the top of Samach Vav Amud Beis. Habal Naira Mirasa and Echayav Achetei Naira Psula Murasa. Just have three things, right? The Naira Mirasa is engaged a woman who has Mukadeshes. So that's what the Torah says. The Torah says, Torah says the skila for Naira HaMeirasa. Normally, a married woman is just bechanet, but because over here she's both betraying her husband, who she mekudeshes to, as well as her father, because she's still in her father's house, she gets upgraded to skila. So Mishnah says you need three things. It has to be a Naira. A Naira is a woman between, I think it's between 12 and 12 and a half. And then when she's 12 and a half, she becomes a Begeris. And Hameirasa is that she's Mukudeshas, not Nesua. She only got to the first stage. And Psula Muras. She also has to be a Psula. She can never have been married previously, or had Bia even previously. She has to be a Psula. In addition, she has to be in her father's house, which the Gemara will explain, means that if the father already sent her with shluchim to bring her to her new husband's house, that's not going to be chayiv as Naira Merasa. Ba'al Shnayim, if two people were born her, meaning she was Naira Merasa, and two people were born her, Harishon b'skila v'hasheni b'chanek. The first one's got skila, and the second one is chanek. This would seem to be obvious. Obviously, the second one, she's not anymore a psula. And we said one of the things you need is a psula. The Gemara is going to explain, it's talking about where the first one was Ba'ala Shaloi Kedarka. And even so, that still makes it that she's not considered technically a psula. Naira v'loy begeres. What it says in Naira, that she has to be a Naira, means not a begeres. Psula v'loy ba'ula. She has to be a psula, and not that someone was bana. Murasa v'loy nesua. She has to be that she was mukudeshes, but not that there was already nesuin. Bevei in her father's house, like we said, that's the last part that we had explained. That when it says bevei savia, it means that her father couldn't have given her over to be brought to her husband's shluchim. This is according to Reb Meir. This that we say, it's only when she's a psula, not only when she's a naira, meaning she's above 12 and less than 12 and a half. She's not a katana, she's not under 12, and she's not more than 12 and a half when she's a begaris. That's Reb Meir. He says when it says naira hameirasa, when it says a naira, it means up to a naira, up to the age of a naira. It means a katana would also be chayiv al naira hameirasa. Obviously, the girl would not be chayiv because she's a katana. It's not so obvious, but yeah, it is obvious that she's not mechuyev and einshin. She doesn't get punished when she's a katana. But it will be negeya for the, I think for the, was it negeya for? Yes, he would no. He would hold taka that a katana. This is a takanas. The Torah would say that even a katana is chayiv. We'll have to figure that out at a different time. How do we have the Mishnah is like Reb Meir, who says that the din of Naira Merasa is limited specifically a Naira and not to a katana as well? Maybe the Mishnah is like the Rabbanan, who include a katana. When it says it has to be a Naira, it means it's only up to the age of a Naira. Why does it say Naira Psula Murasa until she's a Naira Psula Murasa? It should say Einichayev Ella Al Naira Psula Murasa. If it means to say that it's chayiv up until a begeris, it should just say on a Naira Psula she's chayiv, which would mean to exclude her by Geras. And the fact that it says Acha Tehei Naira, meaning it means that seems to be saying until she becomes a Naira, she's not going to be Chayiv. So therefore, our Mishnah Taka has to be going like Rameir, that it's talking about specifically when she is a Naira, not when she's a Ketana. If someone's born a Ketana that's Murasis, according to Rameir, what's it in? Rameir says she has to be a Naira, not when she's a Ketana. Are we saying that the man who was born is entirely going to be off the hook? Say, oh, you got lucky. The Torah says a Naira Hameras, a girl who's a Psula, who's a Naira and who's Morasis, the din is Skila. But if she's not yet a Naira, then there's no such din. So do we say that there's no din Skila at all? I'm Skila Ma'ile. There's no, I'm saying that, and she's not going to be Chayiv at all. I'm Skila Ma'ile. Or we just say no, she doesn't get. There's no din of the extra Chayiv of Skila, but the man who is Bana will still get upgrade. He'll still get Misa. He'll just get the regular Misa of Chanek for being Bana Eshasis. Ish. Amle Mistav Meskila Memayale. He said probably chances are that it's Chayiv, or it's Taka still Chayiv Misa, Bidei Adam, Misa's Bezdin, but just means that as long as she's a Ketana, it's only going to be regular Chanek. V'aksiv u'meisu gam shneim, actually you shneim shaven. Back to Gemara, it says, L'gabi the pasuk, ki yimotze ish sheicha v'misha b'ulas baal u'meisum gam shneim, ish sheicha v'misha v'isha b'yata ra b'Yisrael. It says the Torah seems to say that it's only when the two, both the man and the woman, are getting the same misa. Now over here, if she's a Ketana, she can't get punished. She's not old enough to get. She's not a bar basoinshin. So so the man would not be getting the same einish as the woman. So how could you say that the man is still going to get Chiyav Chanek and she's going to be Chayiv? Shasik Rav. Rav was quiet. Amar Shmuel, my time is Shasik Rav. Rav had an answer. The pasuk says the man who killed her, who was born her. This is talking about Ashes Ish. It's talking about specifically a man who's born, who's ma'anis, a woman. It says that he himself is going to get killed. So you see that he does get, that the pasuk is saying specifically that he does get a different einish than her. Gemara says this is a machlokes time. Actually, you shneim shav. Divrei Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Yeshua says taka that the man can't get killed unless the woman is also getting a similar einish. She's also getting misa. What is Rabbi Yonasan who says that the man can get killed even though the woman is not roy to get misa? What does he learn with Umesa Shachmin Levadai? Amarav Lamute Maisa Chidudim. It's coming to exclude Maisa Chidudim. What Rashi explains is where a man what is it? Let's see. So Rashi, the first very wide line. He's makasha his aver. He stimulates himself from the outside. Duhu nenav he ain't a nenav. He gets hano and she doesn't. So that's what it says. Umeisim gan shneim, that they both have to. In order for there to be misa, it has to be an actual bia, a maisa chidudim, where there's only hana for him. So that's not called gam shneim, and therefore there's not going to be misa. It's not bia. The Torah is talking about being born ish, and there's no bia. And what about according to Rabbi Yeshua, who says that we do darshan achi yushneim shavin? So what is he going to do with the pasuk be'it high levada? What is he going to do with it? To the Tanya, men were born her, and she still remains a psula. Means they were born her shaloi kedarka. All of them get skila. Rabbi Aymarishim beskila v'kulam b'chanek. Rabbi says no. Once one of them was born her, then she's no longer technically a psula, like we said in the Mishnah. This is going to be the sheet of our Mishnah. and all of them will just get chenek. It's not going to be considered. In order to be a naira hamirasa, you need all three things. She needs to be a naira, she needs a psula, and she needs to be restless. She's not a psula anymore. So he learns that out from levadei. I'm sorry. Umesa isha sheshachav ime levadei. Taner Rabban. Ubas ish kayin kisecha liznes. When now we're switching over. We're talking about a naira merasa. Now we're talking about the daughter of a kayin, which we said gets sreifa when she's a naira and she's born. Well, we had the machlekes tanaim before, whether it's just talking about whether she's a naira or I'm sorry, whether she's mekudeshes or even if she's nesua. But it does say if she's a naira. Kisecha liznes. Rabbi Yomer Tchila. Rabbi says, Bas ish kayin kiseichel means tchila. B'cheinu amem meisa isha sheshachav ime levadei. That's what it says. Umeisa isha sheshachav ime levadei. That tells you it has to be bedafka that she's tchila, that she's a psula. Micah Amar. So what does this mean? Umeisa isha sheshachav ime levadei. What does that have to do with the saying that she has to be a psula? Amar Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua, Rabbi Kribi Shmuel severely. Rabbi is going to look at Shmuel who holds Amar Rusa Yotzil Sreifa. That only in Arusa gets sreifa by a bas kayin and not in a suah. V'hachikamer im tchilas bia bisnus bisreifa. If she's a psula, then she gets sreifa. V'idach b'chanek. But if she's not a psula anymore, then she gets the regular din of a eishes ish, even though she's a bas kayin. My b'chein. So what's the last part b'chein? He's saying it's also again it's talking. We're saying that the two things are comparable. That the bas kohen is learned out for a naira rasa. It's going to have the same restrictions. That has to be a naira, a psula, and a meirasas. Amrle Rabbi Barabaya Male Hachiyama. We have a different shot. Uman Rabbi Yosef. Rabbi Yosef learned this member of Rabbi differently. Rabbi Karamer Amar Nisas La'achan Min Apsula Misasa B'chanek. He holds that a bas kohen only gets sreifa if she was never if she's not being ba on a psula, someone who's going to passel her le kahuna. So nitzid la'achan min apsula misasa b'chanek. Once I'm sorry, that if she was already ba on married to a puzzle, so that makes her no longer fully a bas kayin. She's no longer going to be able to go back lebeis avia to eat truma. She's excluded from the kahuna. If the first time she's being mizana is this time, and then she's going to, when she's a naira meirasa, then she gets sreif. But if she was already puzzle kahuna, she's not really so much a bas kayin anymore, and therefore she's excluded. So then what is this last part? It's just saying it has to be tchilas chilul, has to be from this bia, but it doesn't mean to say that we're actually learning it out from that pasuk. Okay, now let's skip. Now we could truly say Hajjon al-Chabra Bisis and start the pasuk. No, thank you very much. Start the parak of Ben Seiru Meira on Samachet Samid Beis. Ben Seiru Meira. Me'emas Ainasa Ben Seiru Meira. When does a Ben Seiru? So we know what a Ben Seiru Meira generally is. It's a boy who, about the time of his bar mitzvah, we're going to see it's right after after he becomes a gadol. If he's zaylul v'seiva, he eats and he drinks. He's a glutton and he steals and he gets warned and he continues doing it. He gets misa. I'll shame what he's going to happen. We know where he's going to end up. So the Torah dictates he gets misa. Ben Seiru Meira. Ben Seiru Meira. What age does he become a Ben Seiru Meira? Mishayavis stage Cyrus. The time he's Yavi stage Cyrus, he has to be above 13, as well as maybe stage Cyrus. And it also has to be, there's a limitation, there's an upper limit. It's from the time of stage Cyrus until he has a complete zaken, which the Gemara is going to say exactly what that means. Hatachten meaning not his facial beard, it means by his aver. He has if he's fully grown in by his aver, it's not just stay Cyrus, then he's disqualified anymore from being a Ben Saira Meir. The Gemara is going to explain this is a very small amount of time. El Shadivu Chacham B'Lashon Nikiya. Chacham that said Hachi Yaakov HaZaken. They said Zaken, even though that's not really Zaken. Usually means a facial beard, but they didn't want to use a not nice way of saying it, so they said a Zaken. Shenemar Ki Yilish Bein V'Loi Bas. The Torah says when a man has a son, which tells you a son and not a daughter, but this is the part Ben V'Loi Ish Katan. Well, Ben V'Loi Ish, Ben tells you, but not a man. Katan Pater Shaloi Ba L'Chlal Mitzvahs. Two things. The pasuk says Ben V'Loi Ish. He can't be. So Ben V'Loi Ish tells you he can't be where he was with the Zaken, actually Yaakov HaZaken. Then he's no longer a Ben. He's past that. He's a full-grown man. So that's the upper limit. And Katan is Pater Shaloi Ba L'Chlal Mitzvahs. But if he's less than Shtei Cyrus, then he's not Ba L'Chlal Mitzvahs. So again, that's the band in which a person is able to be a Ben Saira Meir. Between the time he's maybe Shtei Cyrus until the time he's Yaakov HaZaken. So
the Mishnah explains what Yaakov HaZaken means?
The Mishnah says, the Mishnah is explaining, yeah. I mean, it's not referring to Zaken. Yeah, it's a little strange. Once, so you already lost the whole point of the Lashon Nikiya if you're explaining it in the Mishnah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I expect Rashi to explain that, not the Mishnah.
Right. Yeah. So Gemara, Katan Minal of the Potter. Where do we know that a Katan is Potter before he becomes even Shtei Cyrus? So Gemara Minal, what do you mean Minal? First of all, because the Mishnah said Shalai Ba'al Chal Mitzvah, said it very clearly. Now we're asking Minal and the Potter. We never ask such a question. We don't ask about eating treif, and we don't ask about Gilei Arayis even. We don't ask that. Where do you know that a cotton is potter? Cotton is potter in all the mitzvahs Rebbe Torah. So why are we asking over here? How do you know that a cotton is potter? So Anan Hachi Kamin. Atu Ben Saira Meir al Chatoy Nereg al Shem Seifer Nereg. Saying Ben Saira Meir is not killed because of what he did. It's because of what he's going to become. Bikimi al Shem Seifer Nereg afilu cotton nami. What it says, maybe this is different because since Ben Saira Meir is being punished not because of his prior deeds, but because of what we anticipate he's going to do in the future, that should apply even to a cotton. He's not getting punished for what he did. Cotton can't get punished for what he did, but he's inevitably going to be the same thing as a gadol. For oid ben v'loyish cotton, ben v'loyish cotton mashma, v'loyish cotton mashma. The Torah says ben v'loyish, a son, but not a full-grown man. That's also mashma, somewhat, that we're talking about a cotton. Now we've said it means someone who is not hikav hazaken, but it could mean even someone who's not a cotton, who's even a cotton.
Maybe that's Ben V'Lebas. Ben.
Well, that's an additional thing.
Right.
We learn more than one thing from Ben. Amar Rav Yudah Amarav, the Amar Kra, because that's the pashtus of the pasuk. Amar Rav Yudah Amarav, the Amar Kra, b'chiyel ish ben hasamach l'gvuros ishalish. The Torah says kiyel ish ben. It didn't have to say kiyel ish ben. It could have just said kiyeh ben. So when it says ben, it means ish. That's a ben who's near to being a man, which means already he's past Shtei Cyrus. That's a reference to someone who is between the time of Shtei Cyrus and before he's Hikef HaZaken. Zak Gemara, it's going to really continue this. We said the upper limit. So the first part of the Gemara was explaining how we know he can't be a katan, and now we're saying he can't be a gadol, meaning above the time of Yaakov HaZaken. Tani Rav Chia, Achi Yaakov HaTorah. He says it means specifically until the Atara, until it's makif, it's like a crown. That means specifically to say it means akafa of the aver and not the akafa of the entire area. So it's not such a long time. Amr Chizda, Katan Shahoilid, Aim Benoi Nasa Ben Sayrumayr. He says an interesting din. He says if there's a Katan who has a son, that son who is born, if his father is a Katan, that son can't become a Ben Sayrumayr. He's excluded from being a Ben Sayrumayr. I mean, even when the father grew up and the son is the right age, the son can't be a ben saira ma'irish shenemer ki lish ben v'loy ben ben. His father, it has to be that he was born to a man, and not that he was born to a cotton. So Gemara, I guess the Gemara the Torah had rachmanos on this kid. His father, he was born. We talk about teenage mothers. He was born into a very bad situation. He didn't get proper hadracha as a kid because his father was playing marbles with him. So Gemara, we said from there we learned Rabbi Yehuda Marav said that we're learning that it can't be a cotton, it can't be ish ben hasamach l'gvurasei shel ish. So how could you say it's coming to tell you that it can't be a boy who was born to a father who was a cotton? Shma mina. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Ben leish. My kiyah leish. It should say kiyah ben leish. When a man will have a son, when there'll be a son to a man, which is my kiyah leish ben. Why does it reverse it and say when there is to a ish a ben? Shma mina. Look at the Rav Chizda. From the fact that it was reversed from the way it should have been under normal grammar, that tells you can learn out an additional din, not just that he can't be a cotton, but also, that not just that you're right, that he can't be a cotton, but secondly, that his father cannot have been a cotton when he was born.
Plus, you learn that he himself can't be a cotton.
Yes.
And he also had to have been born to a father.
Father was a man, was a gadol. The aim of kula hachihuda. So, in fact, Gemara, maybe it's only telling you this second din of Rav Chizda that he can't be born to a father who's a man. Ben ish, ma'ila ish ben shramino tarti. It's just said ben ish. Instead of it didn't have to say the lamed. We said v'chiyah ben leish. Let it just say ben ish, ma'ila ish ben shramino tarti. So you could tell you both of them. Upliga de rabba. This memra that we just said, that it's coming to tell you, Rav Chizda says it's coming to tell you that the father couldn't have been a cotton in order for his son to be a ben sa'ir Meira. That's not like Rabba. Amar Rabba cotton ain't a moiled. He says a cotton is incapable of fathering a child, which we would have thought that very likely. Shenemar im ein leish goyel. The pasuk says someone who stole and he swore that he didn't owe. Someone took money and he swore that he didn't owe the money. He has to pay back, and he has to bring an asham, and he has to pay back the money. And if the person who he owes the money to is not alive, he has to pay it to his yarshim. But with the pasuk says him ein leish goyel, then he pays it to the kayin. If he has no yarshim, so he has to pay to a kayin. So adam Yisrael she'ein lo goyel. Is there anyone who doesn't have yarshim? Ela begazel hager. We're talking about he stole from a ger, so a ger doesn't have any yarshim. Akasim dava. Amar chmana ish ata tzarich lachzor. Why is my sister calling me at 7 in the morning? It's not an emergency. Well, it's called twice. That's why I answered. If he's a man, you have to go look. Only an ish you have to go look to see if he has any descendants. But if he's a cotton, you don't have to look. Because we know that a cotton doesn't have any descendants. So we learn out from this pasuk that a cotton is incapable of having children.
Cotton ger.
Well, it doesn't make a difference. I mean, the point is that any cotton is not. It's only in a gay here. We're not talking.
Cotton can have sisters and brothers.
What? No, he could have sisters and brothers. The point is, we're learning out from the pasuk that you don't have to check to see if he had. Right. So right. So you're right. It's a ger because a ger doesn't have any siblings or anyone older than him, any parents. The only thing he can have is descendants. And if he's a cotton, then you don't have anything. There's nothing to talk about. Now, how do you have a ger cotton? I think we said that if a child is, if he's be'uber, and his mother's Megayer, the child is also Megayer together with him. Like a child who's once he's born, he can't be Megayer anymore. That's how you have a ger katan. With my mitzvah, right? Till he's over 13. Or shtei cyrus. Yeah. Amaya asks on this concept that we just said that a katan cannot have any children. Ish ainli ish ben teshanav yamechad sheroy lebia mina. And the Torah says, "Ish ki yishkav es isha shechva zara v'shecher necharaf es leish." He's talking about the din if there's a shivcha who has been she's been given over to an eved knaini. And the Gemara in Gittin talks about what type of what eved this is, what type of eved it is. But in any case, this is this shivcha. She was given over to a man to produce children, to produce, I think, further avodim, and a man was born her. The Torah says he's not going to get misa. And she had been padu, and she wasn't freed. She's not a free woman, so therefore it's not going to be misa. She's still a shivcha, and there's no misa for being born a shivcha. She's not really married, but he's going to have to pay, and he's going to get malchus. So the pasuk says, ish. This applies to an ish. How do you know this will apply? That she's going to get malchus, even if a bentes shana v'yayim that's bana, that she's going to be chayav. Tamilayim ve'ish with the extra vav. That tells you it's not just a gadol, even someone who's more than tes. So you see that's someone more than tes, and the pasuk says ve'ish ki yishkav es isha shechva zara. So you see that he is able to be born her. It wouldn't use the lashon of ki yishkav es isha shechva zara unless he was able to have bia. And we say the pasuk is talking about a katan who's more than tes shanim. So you see a katan is capable of bia. Amalei yesh le ve'einu moiled. He says no. What the pasuk means is he could be chayiv. She's going to be chayiv for the bia. He's not going to be because he's less than bar mitzvah. But she's going to be this shivcha is going to be chayiv. She's going to get malchus for it. But he's able to have bia, but he's not able to. He's not fertile. He's not going to have a child from the bia. It's like a tvua. If you harvest tvua that's only a third grown, the seeds that you're going to get from it are not going to be capable of growing more tvua. Ish mezid umazriya vein katan mezid umazriya. He brings it from a different source. The pasuk says, "V'chiyazid ish al re'eu lahargoi barama." When a man is yazid al re'eu, the pasuk of that is he's amazed. He plans on his friend to kill him. So the pasuk says, "Ish mezid umazriya." We darshan mezid is like a lashon of bishul that he's able to. Ish can be fertile. A man cannot cook, cannot cause something to come to fruition and cause a woman to become pregnant. Where do we see that mezid is a lashon of cooking something, of completing something? It says by Yaakov with Esav that he cooked for him the beans. The pasuk says, we say bein v'loy av, like what we learned before, a son and not a father. I'm sorry, what does that mean? Ben lav. It's saying that a son who already had a child, he is excluded. So it's very complicated, right? It's saying a ben Sairumara whose father had a child, he is excluded. That was the Chizda. Now it's saying if the ben Sairumara himself was a father, he can't become a ben Sairumara. Ben v'loy av. Heichidami. But how is that possible for ben Sairumara to have a child? If you'll say that he was born a Isha after he was maybe Stay Cyrus, so he's already a Gadol. And he gave birth, this woman gave birth before the end of that period, right? We said the narrow band in which he can become Ben Sairumara is between the time of Stay Cyrus until Hakafasakin. So this happened. There was 9 months. It was more than 9 months between the Zman, between the Shtei Cyrus and the Hakaf Zaken, and that's when he had a child. Mika Shah is Kuli Hai. Is it really so long? The maximum is 3 months. So it's impossible for him to have been born a Isha when he was already a Gadol, and then for her to give birth before he's able to become Ben Saira Amira. It must be that he was born her when he was 10 years old. But Oilin Makami the Lek of Zakan, and she had a baby sometime before he became before he had a Kaf Zakan. Could be even before, could be when he was 12 and a half, and then she had the baby right after he became a gadol. Shmamina cotton moilid. So you see from here, cotton is moilid. From this memra, otherwise, what would you have to say? Ben v'le'av. So oilam di'aver basa da'isi Shtei Cyrus. Really, she became pregnant after he was maybe Shtei Cyrus. It was after he was a gadol. But oiled basa da'akiv zaken. And the baby was born 9 months later, 6 months after Hakaf Zaken. The Kasha de Rav Kuspedoi, and you said Rav Kuspedoi said that Hakaf Zaken can only be 3 months. That's that you're ben and not someone that's roy to be called an av. So what Rav Kuspedoi was saying is that a woman who is pregnant, she becomes nikar that she's pregnant after 3 months. As soon as the woman is visibly pregnant, that makes her, the man who has born her already, he's already walking around giving out cigars. He's already someone who is called a father. So this Ben Sairun Bayer, the day he became a bar mitzvah, he was born a Isha, and then 3 months later, she becomes visibly pregnant, and that's Taka where Rav Kuspedoi got his din from, that the maximum is 3 months, because 3 months is a third of the pregnancy. And a third of pregnancy is when she becomes visibly pregnant, and then he's no longer able to be ben v'loyav. Gufa Amarav Kuspedoi Amarav Shafti Kol Yom Shal Ben Saira Moira Ein El Gimel Chadashim Bilvad. It's only 3 months. Vanan Tanam Ishiyavish Shtei Cyrus Vachi Yaakov Zaken. A Mishnah said Achi Yaakov Zaken. How could Rav Kuspedoi argue on that? It says that the limit is not based on time. It's Achi Yaakov Zaken. So Gemara Hikev Zaken Avagav Doli Mal Gimel Chadashim. Mal Gimel Chadashim Avagav Doli Hikev. Either one will eliminate. If it's first 3 months, at which point he's no longer a ben, because Rav Kuspedoi says, because at that point, if he would have had a child, it would already be pregnant. It would be visible. So that excludes him from being a ben. He's already an ish. Or if it's hikav zaken, that's also either one of those two alternatives can make him out of the parsha of Ben Saira Moira. Yosef Yaakov in Harpakoid Kamed Ravina. Yosef come Mishmei Rav Breder of Yeshua. Shma Mino Midrav Kuspedoi Amar Shavsi Yeled Shiva Ein Ubra Nikolish Lashima. You see from this memra of Rav Kuspedoi that he says 3 months she's no longer the Ben Saira Moira is no longer a ben, he becomes a ish, because if he's born a isha it's nikar. You see that a woman who's Yeledis L'Shiva, if she gives birth after 7 months, the over is not nikar it doesn't become nikar from a third. It doesn't have to do with a third of the length of the pregnancy, because in this case then it would be only 2 3/4 months or 2 1/3 months. So in that case, why would we say according to Rav Kuspedoi it's 3 months? Some women give birth after 7 months, and if you say that it's always a third, then in that case he should become an ish even earlier. Why does Rav Kuspedoi say 3 months? Betray till Sasag. In some cases it will be 2 1/3. Really over is nikar in a third of the days. Zil basa ruba. But we go after the roiv 95% of the time when we give birth after 9 months, not 7 months. So when it's 9 months, it's going to be 3 months, and that's why Rav Kuspedoi says that then is 3 months. Amru Kameder Rav Huna Breder of Yeshua Amalahu Ubedini Nefashis Miaslina Basaruba. We're saying we're going to literally kill this Ben Saira Moira, even though he was let's say he did it after 2.5 months, but it's only Roiv Nashim that give birth to 9 months, and that therefore he wouldn't be considered ish. But had he been ba let's say on a woman, and she gave birth after 7 months, she would already be nicker. So why do we say just because of the roiv nashim, it's 3 months that he's going to be excluded? He's going to get chayiv misa. How can we chayiv misa based on a roiv? But on echadayim b'shneim b'chaydish b'echadayim b'gimel, this is the Mishnah we had earlier. If you have one aide who said that it was on the 2nd day of the month, and one said it was on the 3rd day of the month, so it sounds like their edus took place on different days. Edusun kayemes, the edus is not bottled. So you do a bibur shachaydish v'zeh eni yedea. V'isag reichel means a basaruba nema hani dafka kamasadi v'chushi huduka machashi adadi. You should say that they're machash each other. Elam mishana means zil basaruba. It must be because you go basa the roiv. Aruba the inshi avdi tobi bur the yacha. They're saying it's a roiv. Listen, they're both saying they said the exact same thing. They answered all the other questions. Just one said it was this. It was it was gimel tavis, and one said it was dalet tavis. So they didn't know. One didn't know that they weren't so. People often make mistakes about which day of the month it is. So you see, you go basa roiv. Let's say if you say go basaruba, so this is el basarai, baruba then she avdi the toe b'burdiya. Amar yami yavam midifti afanan namitzina. Bashal shonav yam echad. Okay, no, we're going to stop over here because we're going to go for a while on this question of whether we go basarai and din in the fashions. Thank you all.